Are we good?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So today we are going to be going through why the Redskins are garbage. And as a fan for 35 some odd years, actually longer than that, it's probably more like 40, 41, as long as I've been able to follow football, ever since my dad had me on his knee when I was 3, 4 years old. I was watching the Redskins on Sunday back when Sonny Jurgensen or Billy Kilmer was the quarterback under Jack Pardee, the head coach. And I'm going to tell you why the Redskins are garbage. And just so that it doesn't go too long, time person, Rich, just make sure you let me know when I'm at 10 minutes and then at 20 minutes. We're going to make this a series because there's just so much stuff in my head. It's going to be very objective analysis. This isn't meant to be funny. It will be funny, but it will not be meant to be funny because I'm ticked off. I am sick and tired of this football team. And so I'm going to go through point after point after point after point after point, but it all revolves around one thing. Dan Snyder, and I may even refer to him as the owner because I don't want to badmouth him either. I do not want this video to be thought of as just trashing or just anger or whatever. I want it to be an objective analysis, and I want to do this as humbly and balanced as possible so that it doesn't come off as just an angry fan ranting. Does that make sense? Okay, so welcome to Talk TOK Radio. Why are the Redskins garbage? Part 1 of probably 10. Okay. All right. As soon as Jack Kent Cooke passed away, the Redskins went straight downhill. Everybody thought that, well, he had the smarts to hire Gibbs to be the head coach. But as soon as Gibbs leaves, the team goes downhill, and it stayed downhill ever since then. And it's the same problem every year. It is this pathetic, anemic, lifeless offense and this porous defense. You can't stop anybody. And it's the same thing year in, year out, no matter what players they bring in, no matter what coaches are there, and there can only be one reason why. The coaches change every 2 or 3 years. The players change every 2 or 3 years. So why is it always the same thing? Why does it seem like every year, year in, year out, it is always the same thing? You watch the game, and it's the same thing. Now, what do I mean by the same thing? What I mean by the same thing is you ever watch how an ant takes care of its business, right? You ever ordered an Uber, and every time the same person shows up, it's the same personality, same customer service, pick up from the last conversation because it was with the same person? How about the way a turtle walks? Does a turtle's walk change? It stays the same all the time? How about when a goose is taking care of its young? Does that ever change? No. How about a Bill Belichick interview? Bill Belichick interviews are the same. Every time the Redskins take the field, it's the same crap in the first quarter. It's the same crap in the second quarter. And if they get a lead, they blow it in the second half. Big time. Why is that? It's not the coaches, my friend. The general manager has something to do with it, but it is the owner. The owner is the one who hires these people. Firing Jay Gruden isn't going to fix anything. Firing Bruce Allen isn't going to fix anything. Firing Doug, you can't fire the owner. He brings in the same people. Is it already 10 minutes?
Fine.
He brings in the same types of people. I'll tell you this right here now. Jay Gruden is a sorry head coach. Jay Gruden is a sorry head coach. I wouldn't even call him below average. He's sorry. You want to know what the Redskins' problem is right now? After 2 games, they get a lead and they blow it. Why? I'll tell you why. Joe Gibbs' first time around, he was a master at second half adjustments. My father taught me this a long time ago. He was looking at the papers, looking at this and that, evaluating, listening to coaches' interviews, listening to the media's analysis, looking at the paper, looking at magazines. And he said, Bob, the thing that teams in the NFL win, what they do is, even if they've got a lead, they have to anticipate how the other team is going to have to adjust at the half so they can come out and keep going and continue the momentum and continue to win the game. Jay Gruden and this coaching staff on offense and defense do not know how to adjust to what the other team is doing. They do adjust. They make adjustments, but they're wrong all the time. Every coaching staff this owner has hired cannot adjust. They make adjustments, and the adjustments are always wrong. Let me take a case in point. And it also just goes to show you how pathetic this team is. Okay. Several years ago, the Detroit Lions had finished a season losing their last 3 games. And then for the first time in the 16-game schedule, they went 0-16. So they had lost 19 straight games. And I remember listening to Dan Patrick in his radio program. It was the preseason, some kind of preseason forecast. And one of the stories was, if the Lions are going to snap their 19-game losing streak, who are they going to beat? So they went through the Lions' schedule. Who can they beat? And you know what they all predicted correctly? They predicted the Lions were going to lose the first 4 games of the season. And I said, oh, but the Redskins are up here. Week 5. Yep. If the Lions are going to beat anybody, they're going to beat Washington. So the Lions are sitting there having lost their 24 straight games. 24. And then they played the Redskins. And guess what happened? They beat the Redskins. Everybody's like, oh, the Lions are going to get turned around. No, they won't. Because the Lions are going to lose their next 7. Because they beat the Redskins, because the Redskins are garbage. They got up for that game. Their coaching staff said this. And let me tell you something else. Dan Snyder is a horrible owner. His personality, I don't know what it is. You can spend a lot of money and pay for the best possible team because you want to win so bad. But if your mindset, just the way he's wired, he's not a bad guy. He's a decent guy. He's a nice guy. He just sent a plane to the Bahamas to help out with a hurricane. He's a nice man. But he is not competitive, and therefore he doesn't have the competitive spirit. You've got to have the competitive spirit as an owner. You got to know how to hire the right people, and you can't do that if you don't have it in you. Dan Snyder does not have it in him. The it factor as an owner. He cannot, within himself, I'm sure he wants to badly, Dan Snyder cannot walk into that building and instill urgency in the organization. There's several owners that are like this. That's why they're all garbage teams. Dan Snyder is one of 10 teams. He is an owner. He is incapable of instilling urgency in that organization. discipline, attention to detail, pride, a feisty attitude. Dan Snyder is a regular guy, but he doesn't have it in his DNA to put urgency into this football team. And so he hires a coach who says, I want to get rid of all of our players who don't have a sense of urgency. And then they go and they draft all these players, Preston Smith, Montez Sweat, bring in Josh Norman, Josh Doxson, all guys who are either goofy, silly, or don't have a pulse. Okay? In order to hire coaches like Bill Belichick and Mike Tomlin, good coaches, the better coaches, Sean McVay and the NFL, you got to know what to look for. And if you don't know what to look for, you're going to hire the wrong guy. Jay Gruden needs to be fired. Sure he does. But so does Dan Snyder. Dan Snyder needs to step down as owner of this team. Okay? Let me give you another example of how this organization is dysfunctional. Before I do that, let me tell you this. Sean McVay leaves the team. Has nothing but good things to say about Washington. Okay? What was his name? Scotty McCloughan. Oh, the Redskins are a great organization. No, they're not. Let me tell you the code in the NFL. You don't go bad-mouthing your previous team, or people will not hire you because they'll be afraid you'll bad-mouth them too. If Scott McCloughan or Sean McVay were courageous enough, they would say, I left the Redskins because the Redskins are a dysfunctional mess because of the owner. Okay? Let me ask you this question. Who did Sean McVay coach for before he went to the Rams? Choice A, B, C, and D. The Redskins. This phenom. This wonderful, amazing, brilliant, genius, creative offensive coordinator. Well, he was the offensive coordinator of the Redskins, and he was so brilliant, then why didn't Dan Snyder fire Jay Gruden and hire him? Real simple. Sean McVay did not want to be the coach of the Redskins. He didn't want to be the coach of the Redskins. Because he knows that if he does, he's not going to make the decisions because Snyder is still making the decisions. Who picked Dwayne Haskins with the 15th overall pick? Who? Dwayne Haskins wasn't a third-round pick. Because Dan Snyder wanted Dwayne Haskins. And he overruled everybody in the front office. Okay? The people who have been on this team who want to succeed go someplace else to do it because they know it's not going to happen in Washington. Let me ask you this question. How boring is the Redskins offense to watch? So how all of a sudden, when Sean McVay goes from Washington to St. Louis, he has this dynamic offense? Simple. Dan Snyder is not only a bad owner who doesn't instill urgency in the team, but he messes with everyday operations with the front office and the offense and defense. Sean McVay couldn't run his offense with the Redskins because Dan Snyder meddled too much. So he goes to the Rams, where he has the liberty to do his job. And all of a sudden, you have this dynamic, wide-open offense. Okay? Now, let me give you a case in point of why the Redskins drafting stinks. Okay, many years ago, the Redskins had 3 picks in the second round of the draft. And they missed on all of them. Fred Davis, Devin, what was his name? Devin something, and Malcolm Kelly. Do you know that those picks, there was a pick or two in between them? You know that? And there were some good football players taken in those picks. And the Redskins picked Malcolm Kelly, Devin something, and Fred Davis. And guess what? You know who the Green Bay Packers took? They had the pick after the second pick that the Redskins had. And they took Jordy Nelson, who turned out to be a Pro Bowler. Every round of the draft for the last 20 years, I challenge you to go look at who the Redskins took in each round of the draft and see who was still available after they picked, who turned out to be a stud in the league, because that player who turned out to be so good wasn't the best player available according to Washington. Huh? Every draft, look at it. The player that they took, that was the best player available, look at who they didn't think was the best player available. The people that were still there is a who's who of unbelievable superstars. Why? Because the Redskins are stupid. And who's the owner? Here's the big secret. Dan Snyder is very good at tricking people. He's good at fooling people. I'm telling you right here and now, he runs the Redskins draft. At least the first 3 picks. This last year, he picked Haskins, dud. Not even the right guy for the offense. If you look at Jay Gruden's offense and what Haskins did at Ohio State, everything that Haskins did well at Ohio State is stuff that isn't needed in Jay Gruden's offense. And everything he stinks at Ohio State is the stuff that he needs to do well in Gruden's offense. So who made the pick? Snyder did. Because he wanted him. Just like he wanted RG3. And took RG3 when RG3 was the worst possible quarterback for Mike Shanahan's offense. RG3 was like grease to Shanahan's water. Neither Kyle Shanahan or Mike Shanahan wanted Griffin. Because he wasn't the right type of quarterback. So why did Snyder get him? Because he meddles. He is responsible for drafting Haskins at 15, which was way too high. 3rd round at the best would have been where I would have taken him. 4th. Okay. Then Montez Sweat. Trade up, back up in the first round, get Montez Sweat. Who was from Mississippi State? Well, gee, I see a picture of him in a Michigan State uniform. Could that be wrong? No. He played for Michigan State. He played for Michigan State until he got popped for marijuana possession and use and stole somebody's bike. Just the kind of character guy you want, right? And what's he doing so far this year? Nothing. So both their first round picks are duds. And then, because they drafted Haskins, what else did Snyder do? 3rd round, he takes his receiver to market it. Terry McLaurin takes his receiver to market it. It just so happens to be, though, that Terry McLaurin's good. I like Terry McLaurin, but that was pure blind luck that they took him. Then once he had his meddling picks out of the way, he handed it over to the rest of the guys, and then the draft really got started with Cole freaking Holcomb in the 5th round. And Ross Piersbacher. And Wes Martin. And Jimmy Moreland. Bryce Love? I don't think so. Why would you pick a guy in the 4th round who can't even play? You hear me? I'm telling you, you can abandon this team if you're a Redskins fan. Or let's start a nationwide campaign. And I'm not even done yet. Probably done for this video. Are we at 15?
Almost 20.
Almost 20, okay. This is going to be a series. And I'm going to keep putting on episodes until people start chiming in. I want to see likes, subscriptions, comments. Let's start a nationwide campaign to get Dan Snyder removed as the owner of the Redskins. And bring somebody who knows what he's doing. Dan Snyder runs a great telecommunications company, and that is where it ends. I have got example after example after example of why Dan Snyder needs to go as the owner of this team. Okay.